Genesis chapter 3, verse 19, where we continue with God's words of judgment upon Adam. In hydroti tu prosopou su, phage ton arton su, heos tu apostrepsai se eis tengain, ex hes elemphthes hatige e, kai eis gain apeluse. Let's begin with this first prepositional phrase. You have in taking the dative here, nice third declension dative ending. Hydroti is from hydros, and that means sweat. And it's by the sweat to prosopousu of your face, or you could perhaps, I would suppose, gloss that as by the sweat of your brow. And then we have phage here, and this is from estheo. We saw this exact form in the prior verse. It's changed from estheo to phag there with the second singular future middle indicative ending. So you will eat. So by the sweat of your brow, you will eat ton arton. That could be bread or food more generically, and it's yours. So by the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food. Then we have a time marker, heos, and heos tends to take the genitive here, and that's why the article there is in the genitive until. And then we have a very interesting infinitive phrase. You see this is from apostrepho, and it's changed to psi here. That implies that it's an aorist active infinitive with se there, the accusative form of you, but it's the pseudo-subject of the infinitive. And heos plus this genitive infinitive phrase here would be until you return eistain gain to the land or to the earth. So far, so good. And then we have ex haste. Notice this is the genitive singular feminine. It's feminine because it's referring back to the gain here. Ek, in this case, is taking the genitive, and because of the rough breathing on haste there, your ek is going to switch to ex. So from which, referring back to the land. And then we have the verb elemphthes, which is a bit difficult to pronounce, and it's a lot of consonants smashed together. This is from a familiar word, lambano. You see a theta, eta, sigma ending there. That implies that it is an aorist passive second singular, aorist passive indicative. But it's also undergone a spelling change from lambano to lemph. That's what happens in the aorist passive. So from which you were taken. And that reminds us of Genesis 2:7, because there we saw that Adam was formed apates geis, and so we have there he was formed from the earth or from the land, and so now he's going to return back to that from which he was taken. So a good callback there to Genesis chapter 2. And then God says why he's going to return back to the land. Hati ge a. This is going to be your second singular of ami. So you are earth, or you are the ground, or something like that. And what's interesting is that the Masoretic says you are dust, ki afar ata. For whatever reason, the Genesis translator, instead of switching to what we'd expect for this, which would be kus, we've seen that previously, he sticks with gay, not 100% sure why, but you are earth, or you are earthy. And then kai ace gain, back to that land again, so similar phrasing as we saw earlier. We have the final verb here, apeluse, which is the second singular future middle indicative with that say ending there. You see a spelling change from op erikamai, so you will depart. So to the earth you will depart. Now, if you are familiar with English translations from the Masoretic text, you will probably have seen something like you will return as opposed to you will depart, because that's reflecting tashuv, which does typically mean you will return. And so the Old Greek translator here has chosen maybe a slightly strange word to render the tashuv there with depart. They actually had apostrepho earlier, which that would be the more common way of rendering that same Hebrew word. And if we take a peek at the Göttingen Septuagint edition, which we've introduced previously, you'll see that this is the critical text that we see on screen. But Aquila here, that's what the alpha means. He was a early Jewish translator who departed from the Old Greek. He does render it with a more fitting word, in my opinion. Epistrepho is a better way of translating tashuv, and that appears to be the Hebrew that he had at his disposal. So kind of an interesting little word choice discrepancy there between the Old Greek translator and then Aquila's later correction, if you will. And so either way, you're going to depart or you're going to return to the earth from which you came. So that's Genesis 3:19.